All right, I'm back again. We're having glitches on top of glitches here. Seems like YouTube cut us off for some reason, so I've had to start over yet again. We'll try to stitch all these things together and produce a reasonable dead stream of our broken up live streams, which people can watch from start to finish without so much interruption as what we've been experiencing today. I was just brought up to a question from someone named Claire. The question says, we live in an age where there's a lot of confusion around sexuality and gender. How would the community deal with transgender people who want to forsake all and join the community? Could they continue living as transgenders? How does God view this issue? Well, for the moment, it's a non-issue with us because we've never been approached by a transgender person wanting to join the community. Um, I, I'd look forward to that, and even though I'm not sure what position we would take. We'd have to pray about it because once again, this is at least at this point in our community a very exceptional situation that's being described, and I'm sure we'll make a lot of mistakes as well as we try to deal with this growing tendency towards people questioning their gender. It's just something, someone of my age is kind of blown away by. Where did all this stuff come from? Okay, and then we have some other questions coming in here. Someone who's chosen to be anonymous has asked, what if your partner wants to divorce you and for no reason, and you don't want to divorce, but your partner succeeded in divorcing you? Then can you get married to another person? And is it okay to remarry in the eyes of God? Would that be adultery? Well, let's go right back, right back to the original quotation from Jesus and the situation. Jesus talks about a man who divorces his wife for no good reason. And he says if the man does that, then he's partly responsible if she goes off and commits adultery by getting married. So how does that answer your question? Yeah, you would be committing adultery, if you went off and married someone else. The fact that pressure was put onto you, you can't be blamed for, but you still have a responsibility to make the best of your situation, and that would be to stay celibate unless something changed and the divorced partner wanted to reestablish a relationship and you wanted to go along with that. So there's no place for remarriage in a situation like that. And I think we need to understand that when you get married, you do take a chance on that. You cannot guarantee the other person is going to be faithful. And if they're unfaithful, then you're going to be left high and dry. So I remember I had a high school teacher. He was an atheist, actually, but he said some good things. And he said he thought they were talking about making the criteria for divorce easier. And he said, no, I think they need to make the criteria for marriage harder. In other words, don't get into these relationships without an awful lot of prayer and thought, because you make a poor choice and you have to live with the consequences. That's just the way it goes. God wants us to count the cost of getting married. Now, Billy has written, if I got married to someone who was already married and had cheated on me, and I have kids with that person, and I got divorced, can I get married again? You see a theme in a lot of these. Can I get married? Can I get married? Can I get married? Why don't we just understand that if you're going to put God first, he has to come above all of these things. And this applies even to people like myself. I've only ever had sex with one person my whole life, and I've been married to her for 58 years. But God says he has to come first. And so there have been times when Cherry and I have been separated for months at a time in God's service. That he wants first priority. And when we keep coming at him with, can I get married? Can I get married? Can I get married? We don't make ourselves quite as available to thy will be done as we should be. So we're talking about, okay, you married someone and they cheated. It seems a repeat of the last question, isn't it? Okay, they did the wrong thing. You see yourself as being the innocent party, even though you got kids and had this relationship. you made a poor choice. Okay, and there are no innocent parties. You made a poor choice, then you have to live with the consequences of it. That's how I see it anyway. And this is one of those more common situations that come up, and probably the most universal argument behind all of this move to throw that verse out that Jesus said about remarriage. And we have one now from Charles. What should someone do if they have multiple children with multiple women? Well, let's start by stopping, okay? If you've got multiple children by multiple women, then you need to take responsibility to as much as you're able to for those children. Now, we have a kind of funny situation in our society, especially for men, where society seems to think that men are only there to make money. And they have very little regard for the man's role as a father. So we have found very often that if a father wants to live by faith and follow God, he's going to lose his kids because his wife is going to say to the courts, the father's poor and I'm rich. Therefore, that makes me a better parent. Doesn't, of course, but that's the reasoning the reasoning that the system has. But if you're able to, definitely if you're able to, we do what we can to more or less fight for custody of kids for all of our members, male or female, if they have kids but broken marriages, so that we can give the kids the love and the understanding and the guidance that they need as they grow up. So do what you can to reach out to those kids, but whatever you do, stop having sexual relationships that cause kids. Now, what else we got here? Getting near the end. All right, Ethan has said, is getting married a form of a promise, or am I misunderstanding? This brings up another issue you see that is kind of a Jesus Christian issue that the general public may not be that much aware of, but Jesus told us not to make vows, not to swear by heaven or earth or anything. I'm going to do something, just let your yea be yea and your nay be nay. And this has been a perplexing situation with regard to marriage vows. God is looking for faithfulness in marriage, but Jesus has also said, that basically everything we say has to be God willing. As I said, God willing, we'll have another live stream here in 2 weeks' time. But we've seen this morning, sometimes God doesn't seem to be that willing. Things don't always go the way we want them to go. And so when a person chooses to be married to someone, their commitment, is God willing. That may seem to some people like, okay, that's a loophole then. I'll just say God told me to dump her and get someone else. That would be inconsistent, you see, with the rest of what Christ taught. And so the commitment to your spouse that is expressed in what we call the marriage vows can be altered somewhat, I think, to indicate that this is according to God's will, that your commitment to one another is not absolute, that finally God becomes first, because Jesus did say to all of us, all married people, if you come to me and you hate not your wife and your children, your parents, everybody, then you're not worthy to be one of my disciples. This hate, of course, is not hate in the sense of trying to destroy them or hurt them in some way, but it is that we will put God first, and they will accuse us of hating them. We find parents who, just call your parents by their first name and they'll say, you hate me. But we just try to follow God first. And so one of the most obvious things that will come up after marriage is that God may set up a situation where, he's telling the husband to go this way and the wife to go that way, and they both have to follow God. And we have found that if they're willing to do that, usually God gets them back together again as well. That we still have to put God first. And it's not a case of chasing somebody who's running away, but we do need to be willing to take that responsibility. So it's responsibility and commitment without the idea of a vow that leaves God out of the picture. No, I think we're just about to the end. Okay. So we might call that another week after a lot of ups and downs and glitches. We might have an hour's worth of live stream that we can put up and have other people watch. We invite you to come back again. Remember, 2 weeks' time. Don't forget, we're aiming for the same hours that we had today. And maybe in 2 weeks' time, we'll have this whole thing worked out and we won't be bumped offline so much as happened today and last week. God bless you. See you then.